All right, so MJML. So before we start about what is MJML and how to use it, what I want to start with is why MJML. So back in 2016 at Mailjet, we created MJML because we were struggling to do one simple thing, to create responsive emails that work across Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, all of those email clients. And the reason is that there is no standard in email as opposed to web. And so Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, they all have their own rendering engine. And so making email responsive on all email clients is very hard, because when you fix something that is broken on Gmail, what you risk doing is actually breaking something else on Yahoo, for example. And it's kind of a game of whack-a-mole. And so the solution we came up with is MJML. It's totally open source, so you can access the code and use it for free. And it makes it very simple to create responsive emails that work well across all email clients. So that's the website. You can access it on mjml.io. And so now let's look at how we can use it. So if you click here on documentation, you're going to find very extensive documentation on how to use it. We have a getting started to explain the main concepts of MJML. And then a list of like all components you can use. So you can see, for example, we have a navbar component, a carousel, a button, etc. But we're going to see all of these together anyway. And now what I want to show is how we can use it. So if you have already a favorite like code editor like Atom, Sublime Text, or even Visual Studio Code, we have plugins for all of those. Really recommend the Visual Studio Code. Is very rich in terms of features. And so you can like code in MJML within your preferred coding environment. If not, what you can do is also use a web editor. So for example, if I go back to the website, I'm going to go here, we have what we call the TriTlive editor. So that's a web editor. And now I can type in MJML, see how it renders, and copy and paste the HTML from here. For example, I can also minify the HTML to make it as small as possible. We also have a desktop app available that you can find. And then like just to mention it, we also have, if you, like in the end, coding is not your thing, you want actually to use drag and drop interface, we actually created our drag and drop interface, what we call Passport, our email builder, based on MJML. So here I have a drag and drop interface, but under the hood, it's really MJML making the email responsive. So you can also use an interface if coding is not your strong suit. Now let's look at how we can get started with MJML. So if you don't want to start from scratch, we have a gallery of templates that you can use as well. It's available here from the menu. And we have templates that we created at Mailjet, but also templates from the community. So for example, I like this one a lot from Herbie, which was created for UGG. And so you can see it's an email for the UGG brand. And there is something pretty cool. You can see like the shoe in different colors here, using our carousel component, and you can navigate like that. And you can see it's like a bit less than 200 lines of code in MJML. But if you look at the HTML, it's going a lot to make sure that this is responsive across all email clients with 9 fallbacks. And so that's more than 1,000 lines of code. Okay, now let's get started and actually start from scratch to create our own email. So the very first thing we need to do is have an MJML tag. So that's very similar to HTML. If you're familiar with HTML, I would recommend reading a bit about HTML, if not, before really starting with MJML. The syntax is very similar, and so you're going to learn all the main concepts from HTML, and then you can apply them in MJML. If you know HTML, you can start coding in MJML right away, reading at the documentation. And so we have now an empty MJML document. What we can do is add a body. This is where all the content is going to do. And so you can see as I type that I have like auto-completion, suggesting the right component that I might want to use. So here, mg body, and then I have an empty body now. So like HTML body, I'm going to add the first thing, which is a section. A section is really like a row of content. So this is where I will like kind of like cut my email. So let me add a section, an empty one for now. And then we're going to add a column. And then I can add several columns in my emails. That's what will make it responsive. So now I have an empty column, and then I can add some text. And so you can see now that I have an empty column with the text aligned on the left because I have no style to override this. So now I'm going to take a section that I've previously created with some styles to show you how it looks. So now I have an image and some text below. So the image is this tag, the first tag, and then you can notice that we have some attributes that are exactly the same attributes as you would find in HTML styles or CSS. And so we have padding, the source link to the image because that image is already hosted, and then some width to really set the image. If I don't set the width, for example, it's going to really take the full width of the column, which I don't want right now. So I'm just going to leave that on. And for the text, very similar also to HTML or CSS, I can decide how to align the text. So I could align it left if I preferred. I'm going to leave it centered. I can set the color of the text, the font size, etc. And it's all aligned right now. So very, very straightforward. Let me add another section with an image in full width inside my email. So now, again, very similar. You have a section, some background color, some padding. Actually, now I see that my email is all white and it's not really really standing out. So I'm going to add some background color on the body as well. We're going to say, for example, 4, and now we can see that we have a gray background and a white email in the middle. So now let's continue. Oops, I did a typo actually. And so you can see that if I set a value that is not correct for an attribute, I have an error here that enables me to know that it's not the right value. And indeed here I'm missing this hash to make it a valid exact color. Now let's add another section. Again, very straightforward. We have one column, the background color on the section, some padding, some text styles to align the text in the middle, some colors, some family, font family as well. And now let's get started with something a bit more interesting with a section that has 2 columns. So now I have 2 columns in my email. I have an image on the left, a text on the right. That's the desktop view. How does this behave on mobile? I can click here on mobile to see the preview. And now you can see that in my email, the 2 columns stack automatically. So this is really a native behavior on MJML. You don't have to set your own media queries or your own Outlook conditionals to make sure that it behaves correctly on desktop or mobile. This is all bundled out of the box in MJML. You don't have to do anything. This is going to work for you. If for some reason you didn't want to have your column stack on mobile, we have a component for that. So I'm going to show you quickly. In documentation, there is a component called group. And so what it does is exactly that. It keeps columns side by side on mobile within the viewport. So you can also use that to keep your email responsive without having columns to stack. All right, so now in this, again, MJMH, we have a padding. We have, actually it's set twice here, so I could just remove it like this. And then we have some text styles, and here you can see something a bit different. I don't have just attributes on my MJ text tag, but also have some P tags. So those P tags are just plain HTML. So within an MJ text, something pretty cool is that you can just put any HTML content that you have. So MJML is not one of those restrictive frameworks where you're kind of stuck with what's available in MJML. If you want to add your own HTML within MJML, this is also possible. And so that's what we do here, where we add a standard P tag from HTML, and then we add some styles with just CSS, and then it's going to override the font family that is here. So if I was to, for example, change the font family and add it here again, then this would take priority over what's defined in the MJ text tag. All right, so now we have this section, and I'm going to add another section with just the same layout but reversed. So now I have a text on the left, image on the right, and if I go to mobile, you can see again that it scales very nicely. I have the image first, the text second, then again the image first and the text second. And so the reason we don't have image text and text image on mobile is because here we use an attribute on section. Let me find it here. Direction right to left, and so this reverses the the direction of the columns. And so that is what makes the image scale first and the text second. All right. Now, okay, we have a nice email. We have some header. We have like a hero image. Then we have some text and some like image and text. But what about a CTA? There is nothing that really recipients can click on. So let's look at that now. I'm going to add a new section here. And here I have only one column again. So even if you have only one column, you should always set the column inside the section. That's really what helps define the responsive styles. And then I have a button. So this button, very straightforward. You can set the background color, the border radius. And again, if you look at the documentation, you're going to find here all the available documentation on button. What are the attributes available and what do they do? So for example, the align attribute will enable you to align left, center, right. The background color and all those attributes are standard HTML attributes, so they take the same value as HTML attributes. So that's what makes it very simple to code an email in MJML. All right, and so if we look at this, for example, we have the border radius now. It's set to 3 pixels, but what if I wanted to have a rounded button? That's something very easy to do now. I'm going to type 20 pixels as the border radius, and now I have a rounded button instead of a square button. And then I can just add a link, because here obviously I'm missing a link. And so I could say, okay, let's add a link. I can use the href attribute, same as HTML. I'm going to do a link to merger.com, for example. And now you can see that I have a button that is fully clickable and works well across all email clients. Then let's add a two final sections. And so I have, again, one image that is taking the full width. So you can see here that the width is set to 600 pixels. I could just remove it, because actually the width of my email is 600 pixels. It's going to take the full width of the email. And now that I'm actually talking about the width of the email, this is also something that you have control on. So if you, for example, look at the documentation and at MG body, to look for it. Body here, and so you can see that there is an attribute here which is called width, and so you can set the width of the email. So by default it's 600 pixels, but if you want to use 700 pixels or 650 pixels, this is something you have full control on and that you can customize. All right, now let's add one section, because okay, we have this email, but we would like to also show some social networks. Again, there's a component for that. That's very easy to add social networks in your email instead of having to add your own icons and then make all of this responsive and like define the size of the icons. There's a component called MJ Social, and then you can add one MJ Social element for each social network, and then you just have to add a name. For example, Facebook, Pinterest, I could say like LinkedIn. And then it's going to replace the icon for you. So you don't have anything to do. Again, if you want to override this, just go to the documentation. I'm going to clear this search, and then I'm going to go to body, standard body components, which is social, sorry. And then you're going to find all of the social elements that are available. I think it should be under name. Yeah, so here you can find all of the social elements that are available. With a share URL, so it's going to share your newsletter on the social networks, or just with a direct link. And so all of the social media networks are supported. All right, so now we have this code. It's pretty simple actually. So it's you can see less than 100 lines of MJML. If we look at the HTML, it should be much longer than that, because it includes responsive styles. So you can see that that's something you would have had to type yourself if you wanted to add, for example, conditional comments for Outlook, your own media queries, and then some other media queries just for the standard sections. So that's all of what you avoid by using MJML. And then something we can do even better is that I'm going to look at, for example, I have some styles that I'm repeating for each section. And so, for example, let's say we have this our holiday recipe style. I have all those attributes and MG text. Let's say I have another section like this in my email, and I want to have the same style. I don't want to have to repeat those attributes all the time. And then if I want to change something, I'm going to have to do it again and again. And so something we have in MJML that is, again, similar as HTML is a component called MGHead. And then in that component, you can add some styles that you can then reuse inside your email. And so what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to use the MJ attributes component. You're going to see in a minute what it does. Of course, it can feel like overwhelming right now. I know MJML very well. But if you look at the documentation, all of this is documented. And so as you go and as you learn MJML, you will like be able to pick this up very, very quickly. And so now what I can create is something we call MG class, exactly like your CSS class, except I will be able to apply it on my MJML attributes. And so I'm going to name it, for example, section title. Then I'm going to take all of the styles that I have here. I'm going to remove them. So now you can see that my title is not styled anymore. I'm going to apply them here. And then on the same text component, I'm going to say MG class equals section title. And then it's going to inherit from those styles I have defined here. And so it makes it very easy to like not repeat yourself, keep your email code and your email content clean, because you can create just a few classes like this. I could do the same, for example, for my button. Actually, let's do that just right now. We're going to see. So I'm going to create MG class name. I'm going to name it button. And now all I have to do is add the style for my button on the same class. So I'm going to just remove this. I'm going to leave the href here, because obviously the link would be different for each component, for each button. I'm going to just add those styles here. And now all I have to do is add this here. And now you can see that again, the button is inheriting from all of those styles. I don't have to like repeat all of my styles on all my buttons. I can just add this class and it's going to just reuse those. Okay, so we can use MG class and MJ components, so that makes it very easy to like reuse styles. What if we wanted to do something similar for actually CSS? So here, for example, I have some CSS that I'm reusing here, 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 and here as well. Well, I can do something very similar for CSS or custom HTML. I can create a component that I'm going to call MG style, and this is where you can add your own CSS. And so, for example, if you want to add your own media queries on top of MJML, you can. So again, it's not like a framework in which you're restricted. If you want to add your custom CSS, custom HTML, you can definitely do it. And so I'm going to do it here. I'm going to create a class. I'm going to call, for example, caption. And then I'm going to just add the same CSS that I have here. I'm going to totally remove this one. Like this. So now I did the same style. And all I have to do is on this paragraph where I remove the style, if I can find it. Well, I can do it here, for example. What I can do is just add class, the name of the class, caption. And then my text is going to inherit from the same style it had before. And so I could use it as well here. And then you have a nicely styled email with very little attribute that are repeated over and over, and you can really streamline your development. That's it. We're almost at the top of the time. I want to make sure you guys have time to ask questions, and so I can answer them. So let's do this.
All right, let's do a quick. Well, first, I think someone wanted you to clarify this, but combine HTML and MJML encoding, correct?
Yeah, so indeed. So yeah, that's what I was showing. So you can first add HTML within an MG text component. So you can add like a link with just a tag, for example. So that's one thing. And then if you want to add your own CSS inside the head of the email, you can do it. And then when you use the MG style component, you can use the attribute inline. so that all your CSS will be inline on all HTML tags directly. Or if you don't use the attribute, it will just be added to the head of the HTML document.
Perfect. Awesome. And then let's see here. We got another one coming. Is MJML, it seems MJML is mobile first. Why is that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So MJML is mobile first for a very simple reason. So to make an email responsive, just like a web page actually, we have to use media queries. And so media queries are much better supported on mobile clients and on desktop clients. And so that's why we decide to make the default layout on mobile using those media queries, and then the style will expand on desktop because the support will be better. So by using a mobile-first approach, we have a much better responsive support across all email clients, mobile and desktop.
Nice. Here's another one. Can I use MJML in my application without using Node.js?
Yeah, so great question as well. So indeed, so what I did here is that I used just like the web editor. But what you can do is also integrate MJML in Node.js to compile from MJML to HTML. And so if you don't want to use Node.js, we have a web API for this. So you can just use the web API with any coding language. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is we're also working to get MJML support in the browser. And so you won't have to use it on your server anymore.
Nice. Awesome. Good to hear. Well, I know some people wanted to take a look at your some of your code there, Nico, but luckily this is recorded. So if anyone wants to review some of the code that Nico was talking about in the MJML tutorial, you're more than welcome to take a look at that and review it as well. Let me see here. Yes.
Yeah, and also use the template that is actually available on the mjml.io /templates page. So the one I used is in the first row, the one in the middle. It's called Christmas. So you can actually find all of the code I use in there.
Awesome. Well, Nico, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you coming by. It's always good to see you, bud. And if anyone has any more questions about MJML or anything like that, please submit them to us, and we'll be happy to answer them. And we will go ahead and let Nico go and have the rest of his day back. Nico, thank you for being here, man.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks everyone for joining.
All right, bye.